If there's anything I find people tend to struggle with, is the concept of thriving as an outsider. And for me, as someone that grew up in a bunch of different continents before the age of 10, it's something I've had to adapt, and I've always adapted by getting on the inside. But I've never really been able to unlock the idea of being excluded and still being comfortable in my own skin. And that's why right now, in this time with so much change, there's so much technology advancing, all these context changes happening, you are often going to feel like an outsider when you're standing in the future and reverse engineering to get there. People are gonna call you crazy. People are gonna say that what you're doing is nuts, it's never gonna change, and it's a waste of time. But big context changes have proven that that's just not the case, and that's where we're going with AI. And that's why I find like a real genius in Jason Hall. Jason is a guy who, for all intents and purposes, has been excluded from the NARPM community, which is where most folks make a living in the property management space. Vendors, coaches, right? Like, I find a lot of people that do very well inside of NARPM and can't really figure it out outside of NARPM. And yet Jason, who has essentially let go of any attachment to NARPM, has still been able to thrive, has still been able to build a community, and has still been able to help a whole bunch of property managers. So I wanted to take this opportunity to sit down with him, pick his brain about this idea of like embracing conflict and being an outsider. And at the end of the day, Jason shared a bunch of great concepts around business building and culture and core values and all these different things. But there's just a lot of insight here into this idea of marching to the beat of your own drum, because you're gonna have to as things change, and you're gonna gain great advantages by doing it. So enjoy this conversation with Jason Hall. Welcome to the Property Management Framebreakers podcast. I'm your host, Pablo Gonzalez, and I am here to introduce you to the folks in the property management space that have broken the frame of what you may believe was possible. This podcast is presented by Vendoroo. It is your all-in-one AI solution for resolving your maintenance needs. Let's go. Jason Hall, in the flesh. We made it happen, man.
I'm glad I'm still in the flesh.
I'm glad you're still in the flesh. I'm glad we're doing this in person. I know that we were thinking about doing this on Zoom. I like this energy. I like getting to know you.
Yeah, this is cool.
Yeah. As I got to know you at this dinner in Austin, you and your wife, and you told this like epic dog hero story.
Oh, I did. I told you about that.
That blew my mind. I have not stopped thinking about that. But the other thing that became very clear to me as I got to know you, and then as I've been yeah, these are the people I'm having on the show, is you are a guy that marches to the beat of your own drum in a very, very real way. And the problem that we're trying to solve on this show is this idea that, we're trying to normalize change and normalize different because it leads to extraordinary results. So I would like to use you as a case study on how one can thrive even when your message or your tactics or however you show up isn't originally fitting in with the norm, and how you can be the outlier of stuff and have great success. So I would love to start with, when I brought this up, of this idea of you're just kind of this outsider that has succeeded in your own ecosystem instead of tying into the existing watering hole, the existing kind of group. How do you react to that statement?
Well, I mean, a smart business owner, when they start their business, should always try to go into the existing group.
Sure.
And I did. That's what I tried to do.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's tough, especially if you're an outsider, or you're trying to break into a property management industry and you've never been a property manager, So yeah, so that was a little tough, and but I'm also, whenever you bring change to anything, you naturally create conflict. That's just part of the game. And I think I've always enjoyed conflict.
Okay.
A little bit. I think it's that, so in Myers-Briggs, I think they would categorize me as an ENTP, which they call the debater personality type. And so there's this element, and it's not that I enjoy causing problems. maybe a little bit. There's probably a little bit of a troll in me, but I think really it's that for me, when somebody brings up an idea, or even if I bring up an idea, I want it to be challenged, because either I am right and my idea stands up to whatever scrutiny is thrown at it, or I get to change my ideas.
Yeah.
And so I've always been very open to learning and changing my way of thinking, but I'm usually right.
I love it, man.
But you, like, a lot of people are like equate being, and I used to equate being right with like being important or being loved. You can imagine how that works out in relationships.
Yeah, not great.
And so over time, I realized that those are not the same thing. Like, and being willing to be wrong, I think, is a superpower.
Yes.
And so I'm very willing to be wrong, but you gotta bring it. You gotta like show it to me. And I love the challenge and the back and forth and figuring stuff out. And a lot of people don't. They don't enjoy that.
Yeah.
They're like, why is he challenging my idea? And I'm doing it because I care. My clients pay me to challenge their way of thinking.
You're a paid fighter.
My ex-wife, she didn't appreciate it.
Yeah.
She thought I was always saying her ideas were bad.
Yeah.
But her personality type was such that she wanted to please and wanted to, whatever. And so the challenge there is that our personalities were in conflict. Mm-hmm. And so some people appreciate that and some people don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot to work with to start this conversation right now, man. I like it. Listen, man, there was something I super echoed with and something that I'm like, ooh. One is I'm the opposite in a way of I am the quintessential I want everybody to be best friends in the room kind of guy. But I'm also
like high S on a DISC assessment, stabilizer. I want everyone to get along.
High I, like I'm like exaggerated I with like
interpersonal.
Basically
you want to
negative
with
everything
people.
else. I'm a belonger, right? Like I like to connect, community build. But as I have matured in that thesis, right? Like the core thesis of my life has been how do you build community for business development that I have been working on for the last 10 years out of a major insight in my brother's funeral. As that thesis has matured and as I've sharpened my blade in that, I've realized that to be inclusionary, one has to be exclusionary, right? Like nobody belongs to everything. You have to define the parameters of what you belong to. And I have grown to embrace this idea of let's really define the limit of where this is. And that's been a learned trait for me, right? Like this idea of like the person that inserts conflict into the conversation as a person of value has been a concept that has greatly increased for me. And I've realized that my father was a super successful businessman. That's kind of like what he was known for. So I didn't, I kind of got it through osmosis and it was normalized for me. The thing that I really echoed with from the moment that you said it is that I'm also a person of radical agency, right? So I kind of end up doing what everybody else is doing because common knowledge is usually just like a tested true stuff that really works, right? But like I will fence test the hell out of everything before I decide that I want to do what everyone else is doing. So I really echo with this idea of like, why not question things? Why not, why not get there? And to be perfectly honest, before I got married to my wife, I was engaged to somebody else that I realized was not the perfect partner to be fence testing things with as well, right? So I walked away from an engagement also, and I think it really plays into the interpersonal relationship of understanding how you surround yourself with people that can do that and don't do that. What I would love to ask you is, you said you see great value in it. You see, like, what is the value that you have seen in your life by being this questioner of assumptions and, the person that is willing to have that tough conversation? Do you have any kind of like anecdotes around it of like major things that you have uncovered that had you stayed quiet in a room of yes people would have taken everybody off the cliff instead of like up the mountain?
Well, okay. So I think anecdotes. Well, I think I love this idea. One of my favorite books is and this may offend several of you Christian people out there to some degree, but it's a very Christian book. The book's called The Aquarian Gospel of Jesus Christ, or Jesus the Christ by Levi Dowling. And in it, one of the stories, Jesus is talking about conflict, challenge the status quo, or to jump into what some would call conflict. I believe peace only comes through conflict. Like, what if the North and South had never actually just battled it out and we were like two separate countries right now at war for indefinitely, right?
We were North and South Korea.
And so a lot of times we avoid conflict, and so we're actually avoiding actually creating oneness or peace with other people. And in the Bible, he says, I didn't come to bring peace, I came to bring a sword. And I don't think he's like, hey, let's just create war or create conflict. The idea is that when you share truth, it kind of stirs things up. And he in the Aquarian Gospel, he talks about the difference. Like, some people are like, why can't you just create peace? Like, just... And there's two types of peace. There's the peace of the stagnant puddle, which is full of death, that nobody would want to drink. And then there's the peace of the raging river. Which would you rather drink from? Right? And so the stirring up of the water is what purifies it. And so I think the idea of being willing to engage or challenge the status quo or to jump into what some would call conflict, I believe peace only comes through conflict. Like, what if the North and South had never actually just battled it out and we were like two separate countries right now at war for indefinitely, right?
We were North and South Korea.
And so a lot of times we avoid conflict, and so we're actually avoiding actually creating oneness or peace with other people.
Man, that's deep.
And peace comes through conflict. That's the only way to really get there. Yeah. We have to work it out and come to some sort of conclusion or agreement. And usually in those scenarios, right or truth, when it's a battle of words or ideas, right or truth tends to stand. And so this is, for me, it's this thirst or this desire for truth. So my personal mission statement, my personal why, is to inspire others to love true principles. And so what that means is I love figuring out what works and sharing it with others. I would do that for free, for fun. I'm doing it for free, for fun right now. That's just fun for me.
Yeah.
And I get paid to do that by clients. So that's just like awesome. I think that's the coolest thing ever. And so my business secretly, and our why at DoorGrow, is to transform property management business owners and their businesses. Like, we want to change lives. We want to and we know we do that by transforming the business owner. We can change the business. We can then change their team. We can then change all their tenants and owners. There's like a ripple effect of positivity that can go throughout all of that. And that starts with us. And so that's inspiring to me, and that's exciting for my team. And we only hire people on my team that believe that. They buy into that. They're part of our culture, right? They're part of our culture. Like, they buy into this. And like, we celebrate our clients' wins, like behind the scenes. Like, our team, we're like, hey, so-and-so did this, or so-and-so had this result. And we all get excited because we all buy into that and believe in it. You either have believers on your team or you have hiders. Those are the only two types of team members you have. And if you don't give them something to believe in, then by default, they're only there to probably make money. And the crazy thing that entrepreneurs don't get, because most entrepreneurs, we like money. We don't hate money. But we mistakenly assume that everybody else likes money as much as we do. And on, many are familiar with like a DISC assessment. On a DISC assessment, there's a section called the Values Index. And one of those values that it rates is the economic score. What I've found is the economic score for 90, probably 5% of the people on the planet is low. Most people do not care that much about money. It's average or low. And with the exception of usually entrepreneurs and salespeople. They like money. And so what entrepreneurs tend to try to do is as business owners, we try to motivate people with money, which is a huge mistake. If you are trying to motivate people with money that don't really care about money, and their only reason for being there at your job is because of money, and they're not money motivated, they're dangerous in your business. They will steal from you somehow. It's guaranteed. They either steal in terms of time, they're being unethical time-wise, or they actually steal money. We had a client with a property manager that stole $200,000 before they came to us as a client, $200,000 from their trust account. And people are like, how could that happen? This gal was writing checks for security deposits, refunds, to herself or in various ways. And the business owner didn't notice it. Just stealing money.
I was in their office yesterday, and they were singing your praises. I actually
this client.
I recorded a testimonial for you that I'm going to give you today, right? Because he's like, "Oh, I owe Jason a testimonial." I was like, "Hey, let's whip out the content team right now." Anyway,
that's great.
Interesting, man. So you have built a culture of like embracing change and embracing conflict, is what it sounds like. Let's start challenging some things right now. Right?
Yeah, let's do it.
You are building this like sexy content coaching community business. You can attract people that can embrace like you're doing events.
I'll take it.
Yeah, like right, like you guys. I mean, listen, man. I think any business that has their own annual event that people flock to that are clients, I think is a sexy business, right? Like you clearly have people on a mission. You clearly are like evangelizing like a future state of something that people want, right? Like that to me is a major check mark for me, which attracts me to like whatever you're doing, right? I'm a property manager. I'm just building a business that is literally getting crapped on by homeowners, and I don't have access to the same type of talent that you do. How could I attract people to embrace a culture of conflict? Like, that's not available to me. Let's challenge that assumption.
I wouldn't say that our primary value culture-wise is conflict.
Yeah.
That's not even in our core values.
Sure.
I think, though, anybody can create a business in which they can inspire belief in the right people. But you have to find people that share your values. That's really what culture is. So you define your values, and we coach clients through this process to figure out their personal why, figure out how that translates to the business being a vehicle for them to get their why personally. And that is one of the key ingredients for us to help them know how to pitch their services and product, and for them to attract team members. Their personal why is at the center of all that. And most people are trying to sell property management. Nobody gives a fuck about property management. Property managers, your clients do not give a fuck about property management. They don't care about property management. Property management is the vehicle to get what they want. Nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, you know what, I really want a property manager today. I want to go follow property managers on social media. That sounds cool. Property management is like the flight to Hawaii.
Yeah.
You'll go to a travel agent, and if the travel agent sat there and tried to sell you on the flight, let me tell you about this flight to Hawaii. There's a flight attendant. They have seat belts.
You're gonna be sitting for 8
That's you
hours.
talking about property management.
Yeah.
People like property managers need to figure out what their clients want. Property management's the vehicle to get them to what they want. You don't sell property management. You sell what they want, which means you need to give a shit. You need to care about your clients and figure out what they want. And the default assumption is you want my money. That's the default assumption. Everybody can assume, well, this person probably wants my money. But if they only want my money, that's their only motivation for doing this, then I can't trust them. So the default assumption in sales is kind of like this. Well, they want my money, and they're probably willing to be unethical in order to get it from me.
Yeah.
The direct way we counter that default assumption in sales is we have to have a personal why that I believe in as a business owner that motivates me to do what I do beyond just getting $1 out of somebody else's pocket. There has to be a reason I love doing this business. And if you can't connect that why to your business has problems by default. But what happens is the business owners are like, oh, my team, why won't they just think for themselves? And I'm so frustrated with my team, and it's so hard to find good team members. And the tenants are hard, and business is hard, and they're all frustrated and stressed out. And they don't realize they're the center of that whole solar system. and it's a direct reflection of their belief system and their thinking, and they've just never gotten clear on why they're even doing this and why it matters. And then because of that, they end up taking the wrong roles in the business. If you have an entire team, which probably means you're 400 doors, maybe more, and you have an entire team, and you are still wearing hats you do not enjoy wearing in your own business, you are the wrong person in that business. And that means by default, you have built the wrong team around you. It's impossible to build the right team around you if you have an entire team and you're still wearing a little bit of every hat that you don't enjoy wearing. It's kind of like you are the misshapen wrong puzzle piece. It's not actually you.
Yeah.
You're like trying to like stretch out and be a different shape and dabble in all these areas. And then everybody on your team, you're trying to fit puzzle pieces around that misshapen piece. None of those team members are going to be happy because you're not happy. So I think the why is at the center of that. And your personal values are at the center of that.
For sure. Because
there's why you do what you do. There's how you do it, which is the values. And I think one of the things we coach clients on is a lot of times when it comes to the values, business owners, if they do come up with a company core values list or whatever, they do too many.
12, 16 values.
Sure, yeah. We value everything. Goodwill, love, peace,
We are honest.
And honesty, integrity, like every single thing. And so if you value everything, you value nothing. You can't attract people that match your values. And if you don't have people that match your values, then you can't trust them. And if you can't trust them, you'll hold on to things. And if you hold on to things, you're not delegating. And you're a limited resource, and so you're getting more and more stressed every door and every team member you add. Until you burn out.
I'm gonna break down. That was a lot to work with. Again, I love it. Right. So, original question was like, how do you build a culture that can embrace conflict, right? And essentially, what we're saying here is like, how do you build a team that can deal with hardship, that can get over the mountain, push the boulder up, and get to the other side?
They have to have values that are more important than the difficult stuff.
And essentially what I heard from you is, this starts at a very foundational question of people don't want to be told to do stuff. They like to enroll into things, right? And you need to be clear on the mission that you're enrolling people into for yourself before you can get others to push through that hardship, right? So whether we're talking about embracing a new technology, or we're talking about pivoting the business, or we're talking about going and doing that one thing that nobody wants to do, you have to have this like vision of a future state of the world for your clients, for your team, for yourself that you wholeheartedly believe in. Once you figure that out, defining the values, right? Like that to me is like the destination. Then defining the values is kind of like the rules that you wish to play by, that you believe that one needs to play by in order to get there. Those rules, those values, that creates that inclusion by exclusion principle. It has to tell you who you are and who you are not.
Right.
And once you do that, now that becomes a framework for decision making on how we get there that adds speed to the process and removes the internal conflict, right? Like it removes the just like, is this the right way to do it or not? And then beyond that, you need to, once you're very clear on where you're going and the rules by which you play with, right? What the bus is and like, what the speed limit is on the bus and like what the rules of the road are. You need to understand what seats need to be on that bus. And if you as a business owner are in the wrong seat, then that bus isn't going to get there as quickly as you want it to get there, right? It's going to take just the same way that you need to put everybody in the right seat. You need to put a right seat for yourself. And it all comes back to where are you going? What are the rules that you want to play with? And that is the way that you create a team that can embrace change, that can embrace hardship, and can do the hard things to like truly build a compelling company is what I heard from you.
Man, there's so many ways we could go with this. I mean, you're right. Like attracting the right people, attracting the right clients, attracting everything. To be attractive, there has to be polarity, right? So like a magnet has to have polarity. There has to be positive and negative, right? And if we're not willing to be a little bit polarizing, like, this is what I believe, this is what I don't believe. These are the types of clients I want to have. These are the type of team members I want to have. This is who I am. Like, if we're not willing to get clear on that, then we don't have the right polarity. We're going to attract the wrong things, the wrong team, etc. And if we're trying to attract business, if we're like everybody else, then, and we're not showing up as ourselves, then we're less magnetic or attractive as well.
Yes. Different will always stand
Trying
out.
to please everybody.
Yeah. Different stands out much more than better or worse, right? Like, people remember different first, right? Like, I guess what I struggle with that one is when I hear most people that tell me embrace polarity and embrace conflict are also saying be an asshole. And I don't get that from you. I get a very like kind energy from you. So how do you parse that out, right? Like, if I was just like, yeah, okay, cool, I want to do this, but I don't want to be a dick. How do you explain that?
Man, I think there's a lot of people that know me that would say Jason's perfectly willing to be an asshole, but he is nice. So I think that there's certain things that matter, and when things matter to you, you're willing to be an asshole for that thing. Okay. Like a lot of people use Jesus as this example, and they think he's a pretty nice guy.
Overall, I would say that's his reputation. Yes.
This guy was flipping tables and cracking a whip through the temple because he was so pissed off.
Interesting.
That's also Jesus, right? And so there's definitely things I'm passionate about. There's definitely things that piss me off. Now, I came into the industry, and towards the beginning, I was very polarizing, just almost for the sake of polarity. I was like, SEO is bad, and like this, and like I was like, very contrarian, just trying to stir stuff up. And I realized that was also, though, attracting me very opinionated clients, which weren't my favorite clients to work with.
Go figure.
So I had a mentor. I've had a lot of mentors. I shell out a lot of money to mentors. And one of them said, well, what type of clients do you like? I like clients that are open-minded. They're willing to learn. They like to learn because that's what I'm like. I like to learn. And he said, then you need to stop putting out such a polarizing message. He says, and so I shifted my message to being, this is the right way and this is wrong, and trying to stir things up to get attention and create some polarity, to this is what I've seen works. This is what I've noticed. Yeah. This is what I've found. And then I started to attract different people, clients I really liked working with. Yeah, we attract great people now. Like I really love the clients we attract and we get to work with. But really opinionated clients, man, they turn on you.
Yeah.
And so when you are negative active,
that's what I'm hearing.
You attract negative active people.
Yeah.
And when you are, but positive active people are the people that do best in any program, any coaching program, any learning system. They are actively looking for the good. They're actively looking for, how do I make this work? And they believe it's up to them. They're accountable and they take ownership. Whereas negative active people are like, I'm going to figure out what's wrong with this. And they're always right. And they find it. There's a flaw in every business. There's a flaw in every system. Yeah. And they find that and they focus on that and they think they're better and they're cute and they're clever and they get shitty results. But my clients that are positive active and they're able to collapse time with the stuff that we share them, they get amazing results. And so when people are like, oh, it didn't work, I'm like, our stuff's proven. We have plenty of more testimonials or case studies than any other coach or consultant in the space, hands down. Like, it works, but you did not do something right. Like, you didn't do it. Yep. And so what's different? They're like, well, you didn't show up to the calls. You didn't ask questions. Like, you thought you knew better. Yeah. You were too smart. I've been that guy. I've been the guy that thought they knew everything and was too smart.
Yeah, tell me about it.
So you mentioned something about team as well. Like, one of the challenges with teams is,
let's go back to team a second, because I just want to point that out, right? Like, my style is like, let somebody ramble and then kind of like summarize it in my own way, so make sure that we're, because our friend that's listening right now or watching right now, like I think you can hear it one way, and it can, if you hear it twice, it lands better, right? But like polarization, you just said it, right? Like, polarization has positive and negative poles. And if you are polarizing on the negative, if you're just pointing out what's crap,
Oh,
then
yeah.
you're gonna attract the flies, right? Like, but if you're pointing out the positive and you distinctly said it as like the tweak was, not just talk about the negative, but talk about the positive in this from a personal experience standpoint, not an opinion standpoint. Hey, this is what I have seen works.
Yeah.
Then you can be wholeheartedly bought into that idea because you have seen it and you've experienced it, and cognitive bias is a real thing, while keeping an open mind to the challenge of like what else works as opposed to what doesn't work, right? So it's like staying on that positive track is kind of the way to be polarizing and be different and embrace conflict in a positive way without being a jerk, which is kind of like the thesis of this.
Yeah. You're less of a jerk if you come across as open-minded and observational instead of this is the only way. Because if I go out and say, hey, SEO doesn't work, somebody's going to say it's working for me.
Yeah.
And I've made millions of dollars off of SEO,
Yeah.
But if I say, like, for most property managers, what I've noticed, especially starting out, if they go and try and focus on trying to be the top spot on Google, competing with the biggest companies in their market that are already spending thousands of dollars and trying to dethrone them, and they've had decades of sitting on the throne as the top spot on Google, that's a really poor strategy to enter the market. And there's better ways where you can add more doors more quickly than them, and you don't have to spend any money on marketing or advertising, right? So that's a very different message than this is the right way, this is the wrong way, right?
Yeah. I love that. Do you want to go back to this team point that you want to make, or are you beyond it?
Yeah, sure. We were talking a bit about team and the challenge with bringing in team members. And even if you do everything right, bringing in great team members, the initial system that every business builds team-wise is a transactional leadership system. Transactional leadership is, I'm the smart guy with all the knowledge, and I will give you a task, and you return and report that you've done it. And the problem with transactional leadership in a business, even if you have good culture, like a good team, if you have a transactional system, which is what every business starts out with, unless they evolve beyond that, transactional leadership system puts all of the thinking on the shoulders of the entrepreneur. Why? Because if I work for you and I do anything that you don't tell me to do, who's liable if it doesn't work out? Right? I'm in trouble, right? So the incentive that's naturally built into most businesses is set up in a way that your team members will never think or make a decision on their own. If it's ever an outlier, if ever a new situation, that you're like, why won't my team think? It's because by default, it's a transactional system in business, unless you create something seriously different to counter that. And so the opposite would be a transformational leadership system. But transactional, they're not incentivized to think, they're incentivized to not think. Because if they think and make a decision and it doesn't work out, they might lose their job, they're liable. If they think and make a decision and it does work out, then they took a gamble and they might be okay. But if I go to you and you tell me to do something and I even think it's a bad idea and I can see clearly why, most team members would still just do it because if it doesn't work out, it's your fault. It's on your shoulders. I'm not accountable. It's less risky. And so we need to create a system in which team members are not given tasks, but they're given outcomes to focus on. They're given goals. And this is where we shift them out of the daily tactical work to the strategic level of working. So every business needs this strategic planning system. So this is one of the key things we help business owners implement after we help them with the culture, hiring systems, is building a strategic planning system where you no longer have to be the emperor with no clothes.
I love it. What does that look like, right? Like I wholeheartedly believe in this. Before my company got acquired by Vendoroo, the big bet that I made in 2024 was my team is remote, right? Predominantly.
Mine too.
Predominantly in the Philippines, and
mine some are in the Philippines, but not most.
And I knew that the shortest path to leveling up my company was convincing my team that if they leveled up it would level up the company, and if the company leveled up, it would materially affect their life in a good way, and that they were empowered to do this. They weren't, people that are what you're saying. I wasn't hiring them to like check off boxes and get stuff done the way I wanted. I was hiring them to become the best, and I'm here to help them become the best version of themselves. So I flew to the Philippines. I had like a 4-day team building with them. It became very obvious to me that, we ran these workshops that went amazingly, right? It was kind of like the flow ended up being vulnerability led to trust, trust led to courage, courage led to this transformation, and it really came true. And for me, it all really started at really shining the light on the fact that we had the same values and that we had been acting on these values, and they weren't just my values, but you and I are the same, right? Like you in the Philippines, no matter how you've been treated by all these other companies that you worked with, in this company, you're treated for exactly who you are. I think you're a world-class talent no matter where you stand, right? And then once we got to this point of we all agree that these are all our values, not Pablo's values. We were just like, we had this session of just like, so what are your best ideas to get us to the next level? And I had everybody kind of like pitch their best ideas. We called it like the internal Shark Tank thing. And my final idea was this, like, if you all implement these ideas, then I promise you that the next year that we're doing this, everybody's going to be, like at this level that we are, that again, the company's going to level up and therefore your life will change kind of thing. And people really bought into it, man. Like I'm getting goosebumps talking about it because it really drove this insane outcome that I never would have thought that my little like marketing operation on my thesis would get acquired and this would happen. And I've like broken them all off a piece of it and stuff like that. What's your system for that, right? Like beyond the mission and the values, how do you create this kind of like transformational company approach that isn't transactional?
Well, I love what you did. I mean, you met with your team, you helped them kind of connect with your values and maybe adopt them. I would call that a culture meeting, right? And so, once we have a client that defines their culture and their values and their why and their business why and their client-centric mission statement and like their decision-making guide and all the culture materials that we take them through. Then the next thing would be we need to now get the team to buy into this. And not everybody always does, but most people would rather have a job that they can believe in, because if not, the only thing they can believe in is money. And most people, that's not their highest motivator. So most people are craving to be able to work in a business that has some sort of higher cause or value than just making a buck. Like most people crave that. Like when people come to work at DoorGrow, they will jump through some crazy amount of hoops in order to be part of our team that we put them through, assessments and et cetera.
I've heard about your legendary hiring system yesterday.
It can be kind of brutal sometimes, but we do that because we have a really strong carrot, which is our culture. And they're willing to jump through those hoops because most people are starving or craving to have something, a cause or something to believe in. They want to be part of something bigger. They don't want to everybody's had the job that just gave them money and nothing else. And nobody enjoys that. That's not enjoyment.
Yeah, true.
And so one of my key frameworks, like this is my primary goal as a coach or a consultant in a property management business, and this is what I want. I call it the 4 reasons for starting a business. So the first reason is fulfillment. This is the primary goal for starting a business. We should be able to get more joy or fulfillment out of life. The second thing is freedom. We want more, as entrepreneurs, we want more autonomy, more freedom. The challenge is we think that that's what money will give us. So we make our motivation usually in the beginning in starting most businesses or jobs or anything, money. And so like if I had more money, then I would have more fulfillment and freedom. But most entrepreneurs quickly realize in their journey of running a business that you can have more and more money and less fulfillment and freedom, especially in property management. So most property managers,
Yes.
the bigger their business gets,
Yeah,
usually, and I call that the first sand trap's around 50, 60 units. I call that the solopreneur sand trap. And then somewhere around maybe 200 to 400 units, I call that the team sand trap. By the time they're in the team sand trap, they have an entire team and they have the least amount of freedom and fulfillment they've ever had in probably in their business or maybe in their life.
Yeah.
Because they built the entire business around the business, not around themselves. And so the goal has to be these 4 reasons. It has to primarily be fulfillment and then freedom. And once we have fulfillment and freedom, as entrepreneurs, we usually then want the 3rd reason, which is contribution. We want to benefit people.
Impact. Yeah.
That's what impact. That's what a real business is.
Yeah.
A real business solves real problems. That's contribution. And when we get to experience freedom and fulfillment, we now we want our team to experience it. We want our family, our kids, we want everybody to have a sense of fulfillment and freedom as well. That's contribution. And once we then have a sense that we're contributing, like I know that I'm making a difference in people's lives. That's contribution. To me, that's hugely valuable. I believe being able to contribute is a gift to yourself. It is the ultimate gift you can give yourself because there's nothing more valuable. Like having a property manager spouse come to me and say, "You made my husband a better man," and hug me and say thank you.
That's what's up.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
the top of Maslow's hierarchy.
What compares to that?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I got chills just remembering a moment
too.
where that happened, right? Yeah. That's everything, right? So contribution. And then after we have those, we can't have those first 3 if we're wearing every hat in the business. That we'll never experience freedom and fulfillment and contribution if we're wearing every hat.
Correct.
And so that 4th one is support. We build a business with a team so that we don't have to wear every hat and we can be supported and have support. And we want to then support our team. So those are the 4 reasons for starting a business. And if we're in alignment with those 4 reasons, we make way more money. Way more money.
Yeah.
And if we have those 4 reasons, our team members have a chance at having them as well. But if we don't, as a leader, then we build a machine in which nobody has the chance to have fulfillment and freedom or contribution or feel supported. It's impossible.
Yeah.
And so if you're miserable, I guarantee your team probably are not believers, they're hiders, and they complain about you and they live for the weekend.
Yeah. They get the Sunday scaries.
And so there is what I call the 5th reason. And so this is really what defines the difference between entrepreneurs and everyone else, which is 90+%. We are definitely the minority. The defining characteristic is everybody wants those 4 reasons, but they're not their highest priority. Most people on the planet, their highest priority is the 5th reason, which is safety and security. Safety and certainty. That is more important to them than freedom and fulfillment. This is why they would rather go get a job, even if they're miserable.
Yeah.
Entrepreneurs are like, I would rather have freedom and be miserable. I'd rather
correct.
Work twice as hard,
Yeah.
right? So this is this defining factor that helps entrepreneurs realize how they're different. Entrepreneurs are weird.
Yeah.
Most people would listen to the things we go through starting a business and they would say, why don't you just go get a job? And we would listen to most people's struggles with their boss and work and everything else and go, why don't you just go start your own thing?
Or just go get another job or whatever. They're like, I'd rather the devil I know, right? Like people are stuck.
They want safety and security.
Yeah.
Your team members will stay for safety and security even if they lack fulfillment and freedom, even if they're miserable.
So what I really like that you're talking about here, that's like a through thread. This idea that standing out is good for you, right? Like being polarizing is good for you. The best way to do this so you don't attract, the negative side of the pole is to attract the positive side of the pole. And now what you're kind of saying is if you can kick it up a notch in Maslow's hierarchy of what you're playing for, right? Like going beyond, you got to have the self-awareness of creating safety and consistency for people, because that's generally what they need. But then if you can start elevating the size of prize of what you're playing for, right? Like this idea of beyond money, beyond, personal gain, into impact, which is the thing that feels the best. You get extraordinary results from people, and you get them to embrace the awkwardness of maybe doing something different than the herd. That's very against our human nature. That's it's gracious into me. And what it makes me think of is the premise of this show and the reason why we're trying to normalize frame breaking, right? In this big transition that we're going in, right? The thing you've told me this idea that you're an outsider to property management, and therefore people look at you kind of funny, but you obviously have a ton of value to bring into the industry. The value I bring into the industry is I have studied in depth these inflection points in industries, right? What's very clear is that when big context changes happen, massive disruption comes to play, right? It's called the innovator's dilemma, right? When the environment changes around an industry, then all of a sudden there's a new way of doing it that would be the ideal way, and it's less anchored in the past and more anchored in the future, right? Blockbuster had every shot at buying Netflix and displacing Netflix and starting the subscription economy for videos and solving the problem of subscription fees, which is what Netflix first solved for. Yeah. But they didn't do it because when they started their subscription fee business, their revenue per store, per square foot went down, and therefore they're fuck it, we're going to just go back to this old thing, and now they don't exist anymore, right? So I bring it all back to say that as this massive there's three levels of context change that are happening in property management. The rush into Wall Street and the affordability crisis has now shown a giant spotlight on an industry that used to fly really under the radar. Now everybody has an opinion. The regulatory environments and all these different things are changing. Yeah. The great generational wealth transfer, where all of a sudden your customer's going from being somebody that thinks the boomer generation to somebody that thinks like the millennial generation, has completely changed the customer profile, and it's just starting to, right? It's going to happen over the next 15 years.
And Gen Z is dramatically shifting back to some old school things.
Yeah. And then now AI is coming into the space, so it's completely changing the tooling and the way that you can deliver outcomes.
Yeah, we're in the middle of an AI revolution.
We're in the middle of the fourth or fifth industrial revolution, however many industrial revolutions we've had. This is a real one, right? This is as big a context change as the internet showing up, right?
Yeah.
And therefore, and what happens in these is that the incumbent, the people that have the most resources, the Sears of the world, the Blockbusters of the world, they end up anchoring to the past and what's worked with them, and how do we prolong that into the future, versus anchoring into the future and how do we get there before everybody else. And what happens is there's a massive wealth creation moment where this underdog that nobody thought had a shot all of a sudden becomes the biggest game in town. And the dominant player all of a sudden extinction level event type stuff. And I don't think that that's going to happen nationally for property management. But what does end up happening is market to market, there's going to be somebody that really breaks that frame and figures that out. And then there's going to be a whole other, they're going to capture the majority of the market and everybody's going to start chasing. And then there's going to be a whole other ways of delivering property management, right? Kind of akin to Amazon showed up, they're the only game in town, and maybe Walmart. But there's also a whole bunch of $1 person $1 million e-commerce businesses that are doing really well. Yeah. The people that got squeezed out was just the regular retail store, right? And right now in property management, there's property management or not property management, right? And there's one way of property management. I think there's about to be a bunch of different ways of doing property management, and that's going to greatly disrupt the space. So I'm out here arguing for size of prizes there, right? You can see this as this is my shot as the underdog to become the biggest game in town, or this can be my shot as somebody that doesn't really like having a huge team but wants to have profitability to become this small, amazing lifestyle operation. But the kickback I keep getting from people is that's never going to happen because there's laws and it's all this stuff that changes, and it makes me sound like I'm talking to cab drivers holding onto a medallion for dear life. What do you think of everything that I just vomited all over you?
Well, I mean, I do think there's going to be some really hard times. Like I think there probably will be something similar to the Great Depression coming. That's kind of doom and gloom. But I think that during moments like that, massive empires get built.
Yes.
And it's usually the ones that double down and focus on marketing and focus on growth. I mean, that's how like Ford was built and others. Others like held the reins tightly and we need to like clamp down, and others were like, hey, this is our opportunity. And I think during property management also, like we saw this during the pandemic, those that show care during these times of stress for people also create a lot of goodwill, and goodwill has a strong ROI.
Yes.
I called it care ROI. Like when people were freaking out, I was like, you need to start investing, because right now any investment showing care will get a massive return versus any other time. This is the time to double down in showing care. And those that did got a large ROI in, their clients just massively trusted them. And I think, we saw that as well. And that was the time where I realized how important care was in a business. It became our fourth core value because it was something that was hardwired into me and in my team, but it was white noise. It was like, I didn't see it, but then it became very apparent. Like, we need to make sure that we're showing care right now because people are freaking out. So there's that. I mean, you said a lot of stuff.
It's a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Some of my thinking is, bringing all this forward, we talked about polarizing. I think we need to be more selfish as a business owner, which leads us towards those 4 reasons, which means then we're building the business around what we actually care about and who we are, not just making a slave master for ourselves and building it around the business. And then we have an impact in the industry. And then if we are seeking through these transitions of these times of change, I think business is about change. That's what business is. Business is change. And business changes entrepreneurs. I think it was Russell Brunson who said, I don't know if he was the person that coined the phrase, but he said, God tricks us into changing the world by having us start a business. Because the only way to make things work is you have to adapt to change, you have to continually improve, and you have to eventually become a good person and create good values to have a good team and like to have a good result and to have great goodwill in the marketplace and to attract more good clients. And most any other business would fail in the long run. And so eventually you learn what works through pain and mistakes. I often joke DoorGrow was built on thousands of mistakes. I've made lots of mistakes, like figuring it out. And if you continue to do it, it develops you as a human being and improves things and moves things forward. And I think the thing that as we're going through all this change and transition, that's probably going to come to an industry that really hasn't changed a whole lot, like too quickly, while other industries are dramatically changing a lot faster. I think the early adopters have an advantage. The early adopters of new tech, like Vendoroo, for example, have an advantage. Then there's going to be the later adopters, like where the majority are like, well, everybody else is doing this now, I got to do this too. And then there's the late adopters. And, the early adopters are the risk takers that learn faster. And rapid iteration, I think, is the secret key to a business being adaptable and growing. They need to be rapidly iterating.
If you're listening to this episode, there's a chance that you fit into 2 buckets. 1, you listen to our podcast and you're a fan, and I really appreciate you for it. 2, you're probably a fan of Jason Hall and you listen to his podcast and you follow him. And what you'll find is if you listen to Jason's podcast, a lot of his guests from his community talk about Vendoroo, because it was at Jason's event last year that we kind of had a coming out party, offered our first kind of like iteration to the market and had great adoption. And they've had a lot of success since. But here's what you need to know. That was almost a year ago. We're about to be the gold sponsors for his next event, DoorGrow Live, and we would love for you to join us there. But even if you're not going, The amount of evolution that's happened in the Vendoroo product from now till then will blow your mind. We just released these new AI agents at NARPM Broker Owner, and we challenged hundreds of property managers to rate these agents as, are they an A hire, B hire, C hire, D hire? And guess what they said? 76% of them rated the AI agents made to manage maintenance for them as A level hires, 18% rated them B hires, 6% rated them C hires, and we didn't have anything D or below. So if you haven't checked out Vendoroo and you are looking to be on the front edge of innovation and you want to stop dealing with maintenance yourself, just have AI take care of 80 to 85% of it so you can focus on what really matters. Go to Vendoroo.ai and schedule a demo. We'd love to see you at upcoming DoorGrow Live so you can meet Jason and meet us and hang out in Austin, Texas, just outside of Austin, Texas. But don't waste time. Go to Vendoroo.ai and schedule a demo yourself.
There's like this, I think they call it the marshmallow test, but there was this, I think it was a TED Talk, but the idea was they gave groups sticks and a marshmallow and like some tape or whatever, and like said, build a structure where the marshmallow is the highest. And they had all these different groups try and do it. And the group that performed the best were structural engineers for obvious reasons. You know, but the groups that performed the poorest were often like university students, because they just analyzed, they mentalized so much, like trying to plan and figure it out. They weren't just trying stuff. One of the best performing groups were elementary school kids. They just like, hey, let's try this. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try this. And so in the allotted time, they were able to rapidly iterate and make mistakes and figure out something that worked better.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurs perform pretty well as well. Right. And so this idea of rapidly iterating and be willing to make mistakes and be willing to test things and figure out what isn't working is what moves things forward. When we try and plan ahead and adapt for problems that don't exist yet, we tend to make bad moves. I like pain to drive outcomes in business, because then you're solving a real problem that you actually have right now. But a lot of property managers are gun shy, or a lot of business owners, and they're like, I am nervous that it's going to get painful if I grow, so I need to focus on processes now. Yeah. And so they start mapping all these processes they don't even need yet, and they waste all that time, and then they aren't growing. Yeah. While the guy next door that's a crazy cowboy entrepreneur who's their competitor is like, I'm just going to go do all this. I'm going to go add doors like crazy. And then he's like, okay, right now we're really struggling at tenant onboarding. Let's fix that process. And now we're struggling at like onboarding the properties. Let's fix this process. Like, how can we improve this? So they're solving real problems and rapidly iterating. And they always outpace the property managers I've seen that are like, I got to have everything perfect and all the ducks in a row before I take the next action.
Yes, man. Oh, that rings so true on a couple of different levels. For one is I totally made that mistake, and I made that mistake in the sense of like when I was first building my last business, brought on a partner who over obsessed on like over processing things as opposed to like going and getting punched in the face in the market.
I call them operators.
Operators.
Yeah. You need those people.
Yeah, you need them.
But you have to rein them in.
Correct. Especially in an entrepreneurial environment, operators are high on the seek comfort, seek safety outcome, right? Like they want to create that safety before you actually jump in the water, as opposed to this idea of like, we have to be willing to, walk into something with an idea, create a process around that idea. But if the idea isn't fundamentally right, we got to like rethink the idea and rethink the process. Not like we need to find the idea that fits the process we built. That to me is kind of like the fundamental difference. And the other thing that you said that I really echo with is this idea that people move away from pain before they move towards pleasure always, right? So it's like positioning yourself, whether it's in a leadership mentality or a business building mentality or whatnot, of like, or just a philosophy, right? Like, how do we solve the biggest pain is a powerful way to move forward. And it's one of the things that attracted me to Vendoroo the understanding that maintenance is such a pain in the space, right? Like, to me, this idea of how they've positioned themselves around not just the biggest pain in the space, but completely owning the outcome of the pain as opposed to just trying to create a better checklist for the pain.
Yeah.
You know, like if you can lead with, we're gonna take people's pain away and we're gonna own it completely, and you know, that means that you are gonna completely change somebody's life around it. You're able to like motivate yourself, and you're able to motivate people around you at a much deeper level because you're creating that impact, right?
Yeah, I think. Well, going back to the operator, operators are really good at details, solving problems. The problem is if you don't give them the right problem to solve, they will create problems.
Yeah.
They'll create too many controls, too many constraints.
Yeah.
Because they see problems everywhere. That's how they think. And so they'll get too in their head and too detailed on something, and it'll actually cause constraint in the business. And so this is part of why I created a system called DoorGrow OS. This is our planning system and cadence. I saw fundamental flaws with things like EOS and traction and some other things. They were very top down, which is very egocentric and ego inflating for the visionary or the entrepreneur. We need to create a system in which the operator gets to run it, but they are able to take into account like the core functions of the business and figure out where is the weakest constraint. And there's 6 core functions in the business, and I view them as like 6 children you're the parent of that you need to feed. Most business owners love one of those kids and feed it, and it's fat and happy. And then they have another one that's starving and neglected, and they just continue to ignore it. And they're a bad steward in their own business, and they're making bad business decisions as a result. Once you are aware of these 6 things, though, then you're like, all right, what's weakest? Oh, I need to let go of this one and feed this one. You can't have them all be perfect at the same time. It's impossible. And that's the juggle. And so giving operators this sort of lens to view things from, and then having a planning cadence also, and then having your executive like thinking team members make decisions through these lenses and have a planning system shifts because you're right, they want to avoid pain.
Yeah.
But you need the pain of not doing the strategic goals to outweigh the pain of doing their tactical work and not getting completed. Strategic has to be prioritized. Whereas most team members have no strategic goals, it's just tactical day-to-day work. So we have these tactical systems like Asana or Process Street or Lead Simple or whatever is task-based, or Flusos, shout out to Flusos, which is awesome, or which we used to call DoorGrow Flow, or any of these kind of things. We have a process system, but that's tactical work.
Yeah.
It's day-to-day work.
Yeah.
Where team members become out of that sort of, what do we call it, transactional leadership, and they shift into transformational leadership, where they prioritize the strategic. We have to have a system for this, and that system runs the business. And it gets us out of being this egotistical visionary that is the emperor with no clothes that everybody says yes to. You look great in that, and you're walking around with your ass hanging out, right?
Yeah.
And so in this system, the operator runs it. They run all the planning meetings. We start with recognition first, because most team members that have a low economic score, guess what they're actually motivated by if it's not money?
Safety?
Recognition.
Yes.
Recognition is what they thrive on. And everybody loves recognition, right? Everybody,
Fair.
even
Me
if
too.
you like money.
Yeah.
And so it needs to be a recognition system in which they're recognized for the wins and like the positive outcomes that they're achieving, and that becomes the priority.
Yeah.
And so in DoorGrow OS, it's a system of recognition where we're like, did you get your goals accomplished? Your goal for this week, your goal for your monthly commitments, your for the quarter, did you achieve this? And they get a red no or a green yes in front of everybody else on the team. B players, hiders, as I call them, fucking hate this system. They hate the accountability, they hate the visibility, they hate being seen, and they quit. A players fucking love it. Like, they love being seen, they love being recognized. And so this system is very polarizing. And it allows A, players to shine, and B, players, everybody can see, like, you're not getting your stuff done. Well, I was doing my day-to-day work. The strategic stuff's the priority.
Yeah.
And so there's greater pain. I had team members that will like work through the weekend before Monday to get their weekly commitments done because they do not want to show up with a red no. They will do whatever is required to achieve it. Whereas in a task-based system, which we have that system as well, but they'll just do what they're told to do.
Yeah.
And they will only do what they're told to do. And they will do nothing more. And they will sit around and do nothing until they're told to do something in a transactional system. But once you have a transformational system of accountability, they will do that. And so when we set goals and we vote on which of these core functions, and we can talk about those in a sec if you want to, which is most needed and what could we do to achieve that or to fix that, the business owner is the last to speak, so they don't end up becoming the emperor with no clothes. The operator, because they hold authority, is second to last to speak. And everybody else then has a voice. And you kind of did this when you went to your team and like, hey, what could we do? What are your ideas? Right? You sort of did this.
Yeah.
Now, if we systematize this so that all ideas flow into the system, and it's through the lens of what does the business need most,
Yeah.
and you're able to steer from the back as an entrepreneur, what do you need most? And your entire team are there to support you. Then you have the two lenses you need in which to make really good decisions as a leader. What do you need most and what does the business need most? That's where the best decision is. When we only focus on what the business needs most, you end up more and more miserable as a business owner, and so does the team. So there has to be a little degree of selfishness, but it also means you have to stand back and let the team come to some conclusions and see where the team is. And as you scale your business, you don't have visibility into everything.
Yeah.
I don't even know how websites go on my team. My team handles that. I have a whole department that handles that, and they do a great job. And I trust the person over that to just lead that team to do that.
Yeah.
And so when I say, how are we doing on delivery and fulfillment, which is one of the core functions, and he says, I think we're a 5 on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being best, then I know we're a 5. But otherwise, I don't know. What are we? Are we 3 guys? Like, yeah. So
That's great. That's a great framework for steering through change and like putting the problem first and figuring stuff out. I like that, man. I'm pumped to sponsor DoorGrow Live, right? Like we're gonna be the gold sponsor for it. I'm pumped to see kind of like
thank you for that.
talk your community through all that stuff and see your frameworks, man. I see you as came in here really trying to like highlight how you've persevered through being different, and it's clear to me that you have persevered through being different by having you're like a strategist, right? like you have a very succinct brain for strategy, prioritization, and then operationalizing that with a deep grounding in kind of human behavior and the way that the brain works, man. And I've really enjoyed this conversation, man. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me. I'm really excited to have you guys as a sponsor. Make sure if you're listening to this, if this comes out before,
it'll come out
before.
before.
Go to DoorGrowLive.com, get your tickets, come to DoorGrow Live. Yeah, we do things very differently there. People say it's a conference with heart, and we take a much more holistic approach. Because here's the thing. Nobody is struggling in their business usually because they're not spending enough time in their business.
Fact.
It's everything else. It's their marriage, it's their relationships, it's their mindset. Like there's so many other things. So we tackle the other things at DoorGrow Live, and it just happens to help their business.
The terminology of business as a tool for personal transformation is something that's kind of like come into my forefront recently. I've heard like Jordan Mullen say it. I've heard like Mark Brower say it, and it sounds like that's exactly what DoorGrow Live is kind of like a space to like tap into that, right? Like
business is hard.
Yeah.
You can't do hard things and not grow as a person.
Yeah. True.
And so if you just don't give up, you eventually figure some truths out that work in the marketplace and in reality.
Yeah.
And that's our goal at DoorGrow is, can we just help you collapse time on that? Because it can be a brutal journey.
I love it. Anything else, man? Anything else you want to hit on? Anything we haven't touched on that comes to mind?
I mean, I'll share, like, some of your listeners might be interested in the 6 core functions. This is a great lens. I kind of mentioned it, so I feel like I should stay in integrity and share it.
Cool.
So the 6 core functions of business, first is lead generation, lead gen, that function. Second is nurturing those leads, warming them up, like following up, etc. Third is conversion. This is converting those leads or those prospects into a customer. So those first 3 are what people will call sales. And people are like, oh, I need to increase my sales. I need to get more doors. Where's the constraint? Is it leads? Is it the nurture? Or is it, conversion? Are you a terrible closer? Are you bad at following up? Or do you have no clue how to get opportunities to talk to people? And then the 4th function, once they're converted, is delivery, like fulfilling on what you claimed you were going to provide for them. So that is the crux of property management. That's like maintenance, coordination, leasing, inspections, whatever. The next function, the 5th function, I often call lifetime value or customer lifetime value. This is where it gets into like fee maximization, your fee structure, pricing, like retaining clients, decreasing churn. How do we increase the lifetime value? Which is one of the most important metrics that could exist in a business. And then after lifetime value, the last function is financial. How are your internal finances? Do you, as an entrepreneur, understand your P&L? Or do you put your head in the sand and just look at your bank account, right? Or do you at least operate on maybe like the profit first system with your bank accounts? Or like, what's your financial sort of mechanism and how is the business health financially, right? We can spend too much and that's kind of like we run out of cash flow, right? So I use the analogy usually with the financial of, Indiana Jones, where he's running from the boulder?
Yeah.
The boulder is expenses. It's chasing after Indiana Jones, and him running is revenue generation. The gap in between is cash flow.
It's cash flow. Oh, I like that, man. That's cool.
And the slope, the level of slope is the speed in which you're trying to grow. So if we decrease the slope, well, the boulder's rolling pretty slow.
Yeah.
But Indiana Jones, he can move pretty slow. If you want to grow fast, that slope increases.
Gotta run downhill, baby. Yeah.
You better run fast.
Yeah.
And the bigger the boulder is, the more dangerous it gets. And if Indiana Jones makes a stupid move, or he's like trips, bad hire, bad systems, whatever, he might be fucked.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you can kind of get a second life by like taking out a short-term business loan or something. Yeah. But those are brutal, right? So we want to avoid those mistakes. So that function is really important as well. I got the idea of the first 5 from one of my mentors, Alex Sharfin, and the 6th one I got from one of my mentors and friends here in Austin, Tim Francis of Profit Factory, who I've also worked with. And so I kind of, that's my framework that I take clients through looking at this lens, right? Yeah. So what I've noticed though, like I mentioned, the fat kid and the starving kid, a lot of times the earlier stage property managers, the fat kid is delivery. They're feeding that one. They're like, I got to be so perfect for my clients. It's a 5 on a scale of 1 to 5. And then their 1 is lead gen.
Yeah.
It's starving.
Yeah. Well, it's word of mouth. I'm networking.
And they're not willing to let go of that 1 being a 5 in order to take care of the 1, which is bad decision making. Even if that slipped down to a 4 or even a 3, but you got this 1 up to a 3 or a 4, that is what the business needs most right now. But they continue to double down on what they're good at, what they know, or what they think is important, and neglect their other child. So I see that a lot. And this is the juggle of running a business, because it's impossible for all of them to be a 5 at the same time.
Yeah.
Impossible.
Yeah.
And there's levels to this, right? 1,000-door company, their version of lead gen is if they're not getting like 40 new doors a month, might be a bad month, right?
Because they're on that slope.
Right. They're a bigger beast. So there's levels to this, but as we level up, figuring out the way to level up is not to continually focus on that 5. It's the thing tethering you to the ground or holding you back is where the 1s and 2s are. That's where the focus needs to be as a team and as a business.
Yeah.
And so this is the lens. I basically teach my team members how to think like an entrepreneur. So we're making good decisions as a team, and then I get their information and their feedback. And this is how we've kind of built DoorGrow OS. And so this is how we're able to create such a high-pace, innovative company with a really small team. We're small at DoorGrow, but nobody can keep up with the level of stuff that we put out or innovate in our business. We have new stuff every month, every quarter. We just rolled out these new client workbooks. They're just really creating awesomeness for clients. We just added to that in the last month or two, sales metrics thing for accountability, because we noticed BDMs were really struggling with that piece. And we're always leveling up. Yeah.
Super impressive, man. I've never heard the dynamics of a business broken down in such like an illustrative way to like understand so many multiple facets of it, right? Like I've always just kind of explained it as like, hey man, business is simple. It's cost of client acquisition plus operations has to be less than or equal to lifetime value, right? Like, and that's true fundamentally, right? But then there's all these other moving parts that you just incorporated into all of that I think it's awesome, man. I can't wait to clip this thing and make an ad for you for that one. That's really good.
I mean, the first three are the front end, the last three are the back end. The first three are sales.
Yeah.
And then, and if you improve sales, the back end's going to have problems.
Correct.
And then if you build up the back end, you hire a bunch of people, teams, systems, your expenses, that boulder gets big. You need to increase sales. And so this is the dangerous game of leveling up the business constantly.
Yeah.
But if you continually, where businesses stay stuck and they don't grow and they stay at the same place for years, it's because they're not solving something. They're continually focusing on what they're already good at or already focused on, and they're not taking care of one of those other kids.
Amazing, man. I now know why I was talking to one of our other clients and they were just singing your praises yesterday, man. That was really cool. I appreciate this, man. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah,
awesome.
Absolutely.